Taking a bit. Okay, we are live. Hi, Asael. So good to talk to you. We already talked a little bit before this. And today we're going to talk about how to own your shit in relationships, right? But let's start with hearing a little bit about you, your background, what you do, and yeah, let's start with that.
So hi, my name is Assael Romanelli. I'm half American, half Israeli. I live in Israel right now, but I grew up in the States. I'm 42 years old. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I'm a couple and family therapist and supervisor. And my PhD is in improvisation and therapy, because with my other hat, I have a background in theater improvisation and playback theater and psychodrama. And basically what I do, except for working, mostly in the clinic doing individual and couple therapy, I also teach and perform and lecture around the world. And I will talk about that later.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, very cool. Did you live in the US or
Yeah. So I
you
grew up
moved?
back and forth.
Oh, okay.
And my journey into therapy, I started from informal education. I was an informal educator, and then I transitioned into performing arts, dance, but mostly theater, mostly improvisation. And then from there, the next level was to study therapy. And then after a while, I realized I was working in the public sector as a social worker. I'm a social worker, by the way.
Oh,
So I
right.
started working as a social worker and a couple therapist. And I realized in the public sector, a lot of my colleagues were burning out, weren't having fun, weren't energized, were slowly dropping out. And I realized maybe, and I was really like, maybe that has something to do with my background in improvisation and spontaneity and play. And I said, you know what? How about I research that? I go back and do a PhD and I'll actually build a course. And I built a course called Improv for Therapists. All right. I like
Wow.
to call it the ninja therapist training, where I basically I took social workers and I taught them how to improvise. And I was curious to see what would happen, because I want to say something off the bat. All therapists are hypocrites.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like all parents are hypocrites. We tell our kids to do something so we don't do, right? No more chocolate
Right.
for you. They go to sleep. More chocolate for daddy.
Yeah.
Right. And as
Right.
therapists, we tell clients all the time, we say, be vulnerable, be naked, please feel free, but we don't share anything. And we are, repressed, anal, scared, feel like we're imposters. And basically that's what's making therapists burn out. And what I realized is I have this goal of helping train therapists and helping therapists be more spontaneous, more open. And what I've discovered in my research is that when you teach therapists to improvise, 3 things change: their flexibility, how open they are, their collaborative tendency, they tend to work more with the clients and not to the clients. And the last thing is that it's called therapeutic presence. They're more present, they're more open, their mind is open, their heart is open. And what I've realized is that this research has also really impacted not only the way I train, but also obviously the way I work with couples.
Right.
And through the years, what I've consolidated everything I read about improv and psychotherapy to kind of bring my own approach to couples and couples therapy.
Do you
And
mostly do couples?
so I'd say about 60% of my clinic is couples. Then I have 20% of adult family therapy. What does that
Oh,
mean?
okay.
That means like people like in their 30s or 40s with their parents. And I find that super exciting. I actually started a couple of months ago doing family therapy with my parents. They're 80 years old. And we do it on Zoom, obviously, because I really believe as a systemic therapist is that the biggest changes you can do is with your family of origin. So your partner, brothers, parents, kids.
Yeah.
And then I
So,
have
and
some
that's right. And that needs to happen. So, like, say, if you want to work on relationship that working with your family of origin, it helps if you do that first, right? Because you can heal those issues with your
so
at the origin, and then
right.
bring it to relationships.
So let's give a shout out to Murray Bowen. Bowen was he had a stream of family therapy called Differentiation. His concept of differentiation is my ability to be myself and to be intimate, to be
Right.
both and to be close to you without being reactive. And the way he'd work with clients, this was in America in the 60s, he would actually send them off Thanksgiving, New Year's, Christmas to do work with their family of origin. Because what he believed is if I can the only way you can measure and raise differentiation is with the people closest to you.
Right.
So he'd send them to do work.
So even if it's like say working on relationship, he would send each of the couple to work with the Oh, with the family, so they can practice being differentiated with the
I mean, they
family.
obviously work with each other, but what I'm
Right.
discovering more and more, especially when I work with single people that are not married, I'll
Right.
often invite them or I'll try to convince them, I can't always succeed, to work with their families of origin. And they're like, why? But I haven't been living with them for a decade. You haven't been living with them, but you're still acting out the patterns you got from them. And the
Uh-huh.
best way to work on yourself, there's this whole approach in the differentiation stream called the crucible. That's David Schnarch, who just passed away a couple of weeks ago. And the metaphor is a relationship is a crucible. It's an oven where you melt and you reborn, you die and you live. It's fire, it's fire. And the original crucible is your family of origin. And the best way to get in shape, like a gym, is to go back to the factory where you came from. And I can tell you, as I'm doing with my parents, is my goal is not to change my parents. My goal is to
Mm-hmm.
change who I am when I'm them, when I'm facing them, because they have the keys to our heart, right? They're like, they know the program. They wrote the program, right? So if you can go back into the matrix and work on yourself, so you're not getting triggered, so you don't have to push away, so you don't have to attack, so you can be yourself and be
Mm-hmm.
close, be myself, and be intimate with your parents or siblings. I find that is super, super powerful.
And do
And
you
then I
find it powerful when you actually do it with parents, or because like in individual therapy, what we do a lot, we work with images, right? Or like we put them in a chair, and that's a lot of work. Do you find it more powerful when it's actually people?
So I wanted to talk about it because like about a decade ago, I go with my mom to do family constellations, right?
Yeah, well, I do them too. It's
Anyways,
great.
so
Yeah,
I'm like what? I'm like 30, early 30s, and I'm
and your
noticing
mom
all
comes with you, right?
my mom takes
Yeah.
me to her group.
Oh wow.
Suddenly I see
Okay.
all these women in their 60s and men in their 60s and 70s casting me as their like, father or sister, and they're hugging me and they're crying. And I was like, and then I had this realization, my mom is still alive. I can be
Mm-hmm.
doing empty chair scheme therapy and psychodrama in 40 years with a lot of different, but as long as my parents are alive, now's the time to do it. And what I've noticed,
Mm-hmm.
I have a training in psychodrama. So I'll do empty chair, I'll do internal voices, but it is so much more powerful when it's actually with you, the parent in the room or on Zoom, doesn't really matter. Because what
Yeah.
happens is then it becomes visceral. It's not just imagination. You can see them getting triggered. I can tell you, like my heartbeat when I'm talking about my mom versus when I'm with her in the room. And we all have our issues with our parents. And a lot of times, and what I'm realizing is that when I open it with my parents, even if they don't change, at least they're validating something that I felt. They're like, yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
true. Never
You
really.
right. If they can. Some parents can't, and
Right.
then that
Some parents can't.
becomes
But
yeah.
even if it's writing a letter to the parents, I feel like if the parents are alive, even just writing them a letter where
Mm-hmm.
you are kind of sharing what you are, I think it's so, so valuable because people always think, it's because of you that I am defensive. It's because of my partner. But no, a lot of these things that happened way before you met them.
Right.
And part of
Right.
owning your shit, which is going to be our topic for today,
Yeah.
is realizing that this is not actually all about my partner. And the biggest shift I want to help my clients go is from going to my partner, I'm in a jail and my partner is the guard and I am their prisoner, I am a victim,
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
owning my shit and saying, okay, this is mine and I'm going to work. I'm taking responsibility over my life. Because the worst thing that can happen for couples is or to singles is to be in a victim mentality. I have no
Mm-hmm.
control. I have no agency. Please feel sorry for me.
Right. And blaming. So the worst was actually like when the couple comes in and they say, my partner makes me feel blah, 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 then you know that there's a lot of work to be done with the separation. Said like, oh, your partner doesn't make you feel anything. You 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 trigger yourself from you get triggered by your partner behavior, but it's not, they don't make you feel anything. So even that
Right.
formulation is already like a sign that okay, we need to do some separation here, we need to give you back your ownership of
Well,
your,
I
like
think
you own your feelings, right?
exactly. But I think a lot of us are because a lot of us are thinking linear. Like the whole revolution of systemic therapy, of couple therapy, was a revolution saying it's all a system, going from a
Right.
one person psychology, Freud and psychoanalysis to a cycle. And then the thing about systemic therapy, you're never 100% guilty, never, but
Mm-hmm.
you're never 100% innocent either. You're always
Mm-hmm.
part of that. And I think part of the switch, and that's the difference between individual therapists that dabble in couples therapy and
Mm-hmm.
couple therapists that are systemic thinking. And I think a lot of times it's a shift that some people need to understand. It's not a natural shift, especially now because family therapy has been on the decline. In the 80s, it was big. Everyone was
Yeah.
talking.
Hmm.
No one's thinking systemically. It's an individualistic society. Me, or in
Yeah.
this case, you.
Especially in the US.
Yeah,
Especially,
it's all about
I know that other countries are more systemic. Like, I'm originally from Eastern Europe, and even Eastern Europe and Russia, they much more inclusive of ancestors. That's why it's like family constellation is more popular. But in the US, it's very individualistic. It's me, and I want to figure out my problem, or it's you, and you are responsible
right.
for my problem.
And the metaphor I always use is when I am pointing and blaming you, when one finger is pointed at you, Iryna, three are pointing back at me. And my job
Yeah.
as a therapist is to, instead of do this, let's focus here. And
Mm-hmm.
that does,
Mm-hmm.
and I want, and let's connect this to owning your shit, because I think as I was doing this and, reading and doing the PhD, and I've been doing this for over a decade now, and slowly I realized, I'm a slasher. Slasher are people that have different professions. Okay, that's called a
Mm-hmm.
slasher. Like, so I'm a therapist slash actor slash lecturer,
Right.
right?
Right.
Slash
Mm-hmm.
slash educator. So the disadvantage is you're not a specialist, but the advantage is you have a very wide base. And what the PhD basically helped me do is to realize people are talking about the same thing, just in different languages. But if you go back 1,000 years, the shaman was a healer, was an artist, was an educator. Everything was connected.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Mm-hmm.
we've done, we've over specialized. I am only a couples therapist. I am only an artist. I am only an educator. And bringing them all together is bringing back the wisdom. There is a human wisdom, because therapy, art, and education are the same. They all talk about change. They all talk about growth, but we've kind of siloed them into different categories.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm reading all this and I'm integrating all of this together, it became clear to me that we don't have time to talk about the whole model, but I do want to talk about the yin and yang, the two elements that I work with in therapy with couples.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is playfulness. Okay, playfulness is not just being silly. Playfulness is having a soft perception of reality, not taking myself
Mm-hmm.
too seriously, not taking you too seriously, being able to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to try new things out. Okay, that's play. A
Right.
lightness, or
Right.
because I would call concept the potential state, which is the state between reality and fantasy. I will send links to all these videos afterwards.
Yeah, we'll include
And
links.
and the other side of it, and this is what we're going to focus on today, is owning your shit.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about shit. When I say own your shit, I'm talking about owning your shadow. What is shadow? Let's
Right.
talk. Carl Jung talks about
Yeah.
shadow, all those parts of
Mm-hmm.
myself that I deny and minimize, that
Right.
I either say
Right.
I don't have or that I project on others. Now, what I've noticed is people have different shadows. So for men, if I'm being very stereotypical, so women's shadows I notice are more about aggression, anger, sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
dominance, right? And for
Mm-hmm.
men,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually going to be vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
dependingness,
Yeah.
fear,
Mm-hmm.
jealousy. What happens is,
Right.
because we deny it, even now, my shadow's always behind me and I can never really see it. And when I'm denying it, but actually my superpower is in my shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're only bringing this nice facade of the smart or the sweet. If I'm a woman, I'm usually sweet and nice and polite, but I'm actually minimizing who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving up on a lot of power and agency. And what I've noticed is through the years is to take this shadow and bring it to the front. First of all, to myself, and then to be able to bring it to my partner. And I started with all
Right.
therapists are hypocrites, because I realized a part of my journey was I decided very early on in my training, I'm going to try out everything I read in my own marriage. I will not tell clients to do something that I've never done.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
part
Mm-hmm.
of owning my shit was also opening a YouTube channel and talking about my own marriage and helping and showing people like, yeah, this is my shit. I'm owning it. Now, why do I call it own your shit? I spelled like ownership, but I changed the exclamation mark in the T, because
Oh,
I really
right.
like that is basically stopping from this finger to here. And what I've noticed is that you can't have one without the other. You cannot have
Mm-hmm.
people own their shit without play. Why? Because play is like the lubrication. It's like the oil. You need to
Right.
be a little bit playful for you to be able to go inside and to really say to your husband or partner, you know what, I'm belittling you, or I just ignored you, or I really don't like this and this behavior. Or the truth is, I've been bad mouthing your mom for so long. Like
So
all these things.
how do you like say how do you, like, if you make it practical, say couples come in, right, and they
Right.
just a regular couple, and they say, well, my husband does this and my wife does this, and they're blaming, how do you make them switch and
Okay,
focus
that's a
on this?
great
So
question.
let's
So first of all, I need to put a lot of playfulness in the room.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then I'll one down myself. I really believe in psychotherapy, there's one up and one down. One up is when I go above the clients. I am the
Mm-hmm.
expert. You do need to
Mm-hmm.
listen to me. I prefer a one down position where I'm screwed up like all of you. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
play. Let's just explore this together. And then very
Mm-hmm.
quickly, what I'm going to do, and I'm owning my shit because of my style. I'm an extroverted male who's loud. And I've tried being someone I'm not, but that's not my truth. So what I actually do is I actually say it up the front. Here's a line. I love this. I heard this in Germany. I respect you guys, but I'm not going to respect your business card. I'm not going to respect your narrative. Okay? I'm
Mm-hmm.
respecting the client, not their narrative. And I say that to them right off the bat because I really believe that in therapy, you need to feel productively uncomfortable. Why?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you feel too comfortable with your therapist, that means they're not challenging you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The ones that you feel super comfortable with, that means they're not pushing you. They're not, you're here. Here's the truth that nobody wants to talk about. Okay. I want my partner to change without me changing.
Right. That's usually they come in with that, right?
Yeah, we call it. Yeah, they complain it. I'm here to fix. Please fix my husband. Please fix my wife. Please fix my boyfriend. Fix anybody except for me, because we're creatures of habit. And my job is right off the bat. I say to them, that is not going to work. The only way you can force your partner to change is to change yourself. And what I'll playfully do is I'll keep showing them. I want to give an example from today, if that's okay.
Sure.
So today she kept saying, so this couple in their 50s, and she has been, I call her the married single mom. For years, she's been raising the kids alone because her husband is obviously emotionally handicapped and she has no partner, and she's very much the victim. And I kept encouraging her to own her shit, because obviously it's a systemic. There's always a dance, and there's a constant in systemic therapy. She has secondary gains from being the married single mom. She's not just a victim. How do I know? Because I look at my clients' feet, not at their mouths. What does that mean? Their behavior. She could be complaining for weeks and months and years, but with her legs, she's been doing the same pattern again and again. And what I do playfully, I try to say to her, okay, but for 20 years, you've basically had monopoly over the child rearing. Or as they like to say to these couples, you have the truth and your husband has his opinion. Right? So when your husband says something, well, he doesn't know because you're holding the truth, because you know what's real. And he has an opinion. And in the beginning, she was like, and then at a certain point, she laughed. She laughed because she says, it's true. It's true. I do know the best, and he has no idea. So for me, that moment that she laughed is an ownership moment.
She admitted.
She finally said, it's true. I have a part in this dance. That's what shadow is, okay? I have a part in this dance. You're not crazy. I'm not an innocent, I'm not Red Riding Hood and you're the big bad wolf. No, I have secondary gains. You're never 100% guilty, but you're never 100% innocent. And the second they can own that, the focus becomes internal. And then instead of waiting for him to change and complaining, she has to confront herself.
Yeah, and she gets to work basically, because it's a lot of work if she wants to.
Exactly. But a lot of couples at that point will stop therapy and will send their partner to individual therapy. Now, why do I tell couples do this work? Because in differentiation-based therapy, the intervention is individual.
Right.
Contrary to Imago, where you need to validate.
EFT, in EFT they would do individual work with each partner in the room. So they would do individual work, but it's the partner is present. And
because one of the definitions of intimacy is into me see, meeting myself in the presence of other. And a lot of people outsource that and talk to individual therapists instead of bringing it in. And I always say for clients, this is a 2-for-1. Why should you own your shit next to your partner? Because a lot of partners will say, well, I'm just giving him ammunition, right? I'm going to tell him all my shit, and then he's going to use this later when we fight, right? So then I say to them like this: at the end of the day, for me, the goal of life is to be more and more differentiated, to feel more and more free, more and more authentic, more and more vulnerable, right? I just want to feel more comfortable. And I combine this with Esther Perel's notion of we will all be married more than once. The question is it going to be with the same partner? And I tell clients, my job is to help you see if you have another marriage together.
With different personalities, because as you grow, you change, and then
you're not the same person.
Remarry. Yeah.
Every 7 years, every cell of your body is different. You're not the same person.
So do you find, so I get that you use a lot of playfulness, and you sort
Yes.
of you join with your clients from the down up down approach. You're not like this expert who's telling them, which usually
Right.
don't receive well because they get
Right. They get
defensive.
defensive.
Yeah.
It's already
Yes.
a power, there's a power struggle. And remember, we're all hypocrites. So I'm coming on super strong. I'm in savior mode. You guys are victims. You're paying me to listen. Like we need to balance that power dynamic out for them to be more open. And what I've noticed, and this is also surprising, the more I share about my marriage, or the more I share that I'm in family therapy with my parents, I feel like it's actually easier for clients to digest what I'm saying to them and to be less focused on Assael and is he happy in his marriage? Who is like, I've never had personal like intrusive questions. They just want to know that I'm screwed up like they are. That's all they want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I've done a bit
You
more
join
work.
in them, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just a little like a few steps ahead, but you're not like this perfect figured out
Yeah.
guy
I'm
who
like, I'm
yeah.
like a curious guy that walked the path and is coming back and saying, hey guys, let's go. There's a nice path over here. Come with me. Like that's the energy. And when I, and this is really important because at the end of the day, and I want to say this, I can only help my clients reach my level of differentiation.
Yeah.
I am my own glass ceiling of my abilities, right? So
Yeah.
when I grill someone on their shadow, when I say, you know, you own your shit that you have secondary gains from being the single mother, the married single mom, I'm doing it from a place that I know my own shadow. And I think a lot of therapists are afraid of their own shadow. I'm happy to say that I'm a hypocrite, that I'm jealous, that I'm angry, you know? And I think part of that comfortableness really helps clients realize that they're not alone. It's not that the therapist is perfectly regulated and is never angry. No, I'm human.
Yeah.
But I really think that if clients are willing to do the transition from this finger to this finger, that's when empowerment starts. That when people get stronger, women, men, and I think that is where the revolution happens.
And that's when relationships are changing, because even if the partner say doesn't want to change, or one partner is perceived that the other partner doesn't want to change, they can start working on themselves, right? And that's always going to lead to change of the dynamic of the system. I've heard, there's this research saying that if one partner is going to individual therapy, like if they come as a couple and they start owning the shit, and one partner says like, oh, I have a lot of to goes into individual therapy and start working on themselves, and the other partner doesn't, the couple is more likely to separate, because this partner is going to grow and differentiate, and say this partner is not interested in that, and it's a risk. But it's sort of like it's a risk of any change or transformation. You maybe gonna have a loss.
So there's like two topics here that I want to talk about. One is change. And in systemic change therapy, we talk about two types of change. First order change, which is a behavioral change. Let's say we have the pursuer distancer. Okay, let's use the EFT. Okay.
Right.
So a behavioral change is the pursuer will call less times, or the distancer will initiate sex, whatever. That's a behavioral change. It doesn't necessarily change the deep dynamic.
Right.
A second order change is to change one of the partners quits their role and sends the system into chaos. There is no growth without chaos. Here's another sentence. There's no growth in the comfort zone, and there's no comfort in the growth zone. We're going back to being productively uncomfortable. Like you need to be able to withstand the crucible, you need to withstand that if you really want to change. And the other thing you said about going to individual therapy, I oftentimes call myself, I'm an intimacy surrogate. Okay. And therapy is basically a clinical affair. So a lot of these partners, instead of talking to their partner, they're going to open up to me, and I become the amazing partner, the man that listens to them, that cries, and we have a little bit of transference, and it's like erotic, but it's safe. But that's not going to help her improve her marriage. That's just going to widen the gap between her husband, who's an idiot, and the therapist who's so sensitive and understands. Or the same thing with a female therapist that's young and pretty, and she enjoys me, and she listens to me, and she thinks I'm amazing, but my wife hates my guts. So what I say to couples all the time is like, block your exits. Because and I'm going back to the 2-for-1. If you do this work next to your partner, you'll get two things. One, you'll get to know yourself, right? And at the same time, you're going to find out whether you have another marriage with this person. Why? Because slowly your partner will be able to see you confronting yourself. They'll get less defensive because you're not always blaming them. You're going into yourself. So they can actually, eat popcorn and watch you, and they get to kind of see you without being so triggered and defensive. And then after a while, once you do the work and you become more differentiated, you'll be able to turn around to your partner and say, are you joining me? You know,
Right.
the bar
So
has been
you right. So you always encourage them to stay in couples therapy, basically, and
always,
work
of
on this
course.
together. Yeah. So
And like if somebody calls me for individual therapy, my first question is, are you married or are you in a relationship? If their
mm-hmm,
answer is yes, I will say, bring in your partner.
mm-hmm,
I'll
mm-hmm,
always say that.
mm-hmm.
I won't always succeed, right? But
Right,
like,
right. Would you explain why? Would you explain that there's more risk to the
listen,
relationship if there's, or you just say,
listen, everything's a risk to a relationship. But at the end of
yeah,
the day, you won't be able to do second order change. You won't be
yeah.
able to raise differentiation if
If
divorce
one
or
partner is
if
changing.
breaking up is not an option,
Mm-hmm,
if that's not a possibility, you're not even allowed to say it, it's going to be super hard to do a second order change. But what I
mm-hmm.
say to clients, I say, life is short. Wouldn't you want to know if you have another marriage with this person? I think a lot of us grew up in families where our parents, whether divorced or not, had one marriage, had one dance. And
Yeah.
even if somebody married and remarried, but they had the same dynamic, I consider that one marriage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Very few of us have managed to see parents that had more than one marriage. Like me and my wife, Galit, we're in our second, we're starting our third. Those, by the way, when did we stop? How do I count? I count by major crises that forced us to change our homeostasis, our balance.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
tell clients, I was like, I know it's scary, but let's find out if you have another marriage with this person.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
recognize now that we had a few, probably have a third one with my husband. So,
right, you have a
and
third. You're in your third marriage with your first husband.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Well, by
that's how
your
I.
definition, by crisis, by how we change, by some, there's sometimes there's like this dissatisfaction, and you start like really like, I'm like this, that we're losing the connection, and you start looking at that and changing, and then it transforms, and that sort of like becomes a different relationship.
Right. I want to separate crises because a lot of couples will have crises, but they won't do a second order change to a
Uh-huh.
change in the power dynamic. So from pursuer distancers, it goes to a CEO and a secretary. Like it's never going to be from pursuer distancer or from victim and persecutor to partners that are loving. No, there's always going to be another dance. So from the smart and the cute, it's going to go to the powerful and jealous. There's always going to be a dance. It's never going to
Mm-hmm.
be 100% harmonious. And I think that's what I try to tell clients. Like, I know it's scary. It's super scary, but what would you rather be something you're not, someone you're not, trying to still fit into shoes that you're too small for you, or
Mm-hmm.
to move
Mm-hmm.
forward? And I remind, especially if they're parents, I remind parents that the best gift you can give your kids is a happy marriage where they see you grow, where they see you change. And this couple from today, where she finally owned to the fact that she has secondary gains from being the married single mom. I said to them, like, your kids are learning that that's how intimacy looked like. A victim,
Yeah.
a martyr mom,
Mm-hmm.
and a aggressive, angry dad. Is that really is that the gift you want to get? Is that the legacy you want to do? So I
Yeah.
feel like owning your shit, it's a 2-for-1. It's an intergenerational thing. And by the way, also with my kids, we say at home, own your shit. So my son will say to me sometimes, own your shit.
Dad, on your shit.
Yeah. And
Hey,
we
Dad.
laugh. But
Yeah.
it's true. Like he'll say, like, did you take another cookie? He's like, no. I'm like, Zach, on your shit. And he's like, okay. But
I
again,
love it.
it's
I love
really
it.
important for me to stress, you cannot do ownership without play. Play is the
Yeah.
lubrication, right? And
Right.
play without ownership is silliness. It's nothing. So we're just having a banter, me and you, but we're not actually meeting. And I feel a lot of couples are just in play, or let's call it sarcasm. Play without ownership is sarcasm. We're like jabbing, I'm joking, I'm like, I'm jabbing you, I'm
Mm.
passive aggressive, but it's all playful. But you
Right.
need both. You need both
Right.
of it in
Right.
order for this relationship to move, to grow, to develop.
Can you live? So we're gonna wrap up in a few minutes,
Oh,
and
we
maybe
just started. We have
I
so much to talk about.
know. Oh well,
Fun.
we'll do it again. How about
Okay.
Asyael? We'll do it again. And
Okay.
then how about we finish with one tip that you can give to couples that have trouble being playful, that are very serious. How
Oh,
can
okay.
they
So
move
wow.
towards
So wow.
playfulness?
Okay. So first of all, I'll do a little plug. I'll put a video on playfulness, and I do a webinar with my wife on play in relationship. It is a
Okay.
skill. It's not a tip you need to, it's a gym. But the one thing, here's one tip that I
One
can
tip.
give you by
Okay.
play, and then the rest you can sign up for the webinar.
Yep.
Start talking to yourself out loud next to your partner.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Okay. So I call it secret service. So it goes like this. Oh, I can't believe that the webinar is over. I want to talk more. I have so much more to say, but I don't really know what to do. So I listen. So I'm talking to the secret service. I'm being playful. but I'm talking loud enough so my partner, or in this case, you can hear it. And when I'm talking, I'm saying my truth. I'm not making up something I'm not feeling, but I'm doing a little bit of playful. And then that way, here's the thing, you don't have to react to that. I'm talking
just laugh
myself.
or you don't
laugh or just listen.
Oh, just listen.
You don't have to get defensive. You don't have to do anything. And then the second I say it, oftentimes we call this, you name it to tame it. The second I say it out loud, I can work with this. I can be flexible. I can say, well, actually, it's okay. I know there might be another one, or I'm insulted right now, but if the second I can kind of work myself out of it.
Let me try this too. Oh, I'm getting a little nervous. I have another meeting in couple of minutes and I really have to end. But I love talking to Assael, but I really have to go. It sucks.
Exactly. So that's a little bit of softening. We're softening reality a little bit. You're signaling to me that not everything is life or death, that we can just be playful. I can take things back. I can go forward. I can go back. And I'll just say one last plug and then you can finish. So I have tons of content. It's free content. I have a YouTube channel with over 100 videos. I have a podcast. I have a blog on Psychology Today. So feel free. All this content is free, and I'm sure in Irene's group. And I just want to thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun to talk to you, and we can do it again in a couple weeks or months. And I'll post all the links to your YouTube channel and information so people can find out more. Thank you so much, Assael.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.